You were born into a name, a history, a bloodline, and whether that name commands respect or is forgotten like dust, there is one true thing: it has never seen its greatest son. This video will show you how to become that king. We will dismantle the excuses, dissolve the identity you were handed, and rebuild your psychology from the thrown up. They simply withdraw, because the problem isn't your circumstances, it's your thinking. And this is the blueprint for power, for control, for the rise that even your ancestors could not dream of. There is a silent ledger written in your name, long before you were born. It stretches back through time, held together by the forgotten victories, the humiliations, the betrayals and the mediocrity of your forefathers. Whether they were kings or peasants, conquerors or cowards, one truth remains: they did not finish the work. They left a gap between what they were and what they could have been. And now, that weight has fallen upon you. Most men walk blindly under the banner of ancestry, mistaking it for pride. They wave the family name like a flag, thinking it entitles them to respect, to greatness. But the truth is far darker. Your bloodline is not a badge. It is a debt. It is a challenge whispered by the bones of those who came before you, asking, will you be the one to end the cycle of weakness? Do not be fooled by romanticism. Your ancestors were not gods. They were flawed, broken, limited by the fears of their age. Their victories were small, their sacrifices often meaningless. But they survived. They endured long enough to pass something into you. Whether that be a name, a fragment of discipline, a flicker of nobility, it does not matter. What matters is what you will do with it. The legacy you inherit is never clean. It is stained with compromises. It is polluted with missed chances. It is heavy with silence. And if you do not rise above it, you will simply repeat it. To understand this, you must rid yourself of sentimentality. The past does not care about your affection. It only respects transformation. A bloodline is not honored by obedience. It is redeemed by evolution. If you mirror those who came before you, you are merely a vessel for their limitations. But if you exceed them, if you dominate where they hesitated, if you claim what they feared to touch, then you become something more than a descendant. You become the king that history owes your name. You were not born to preserve tradition. You were born to command it. This psychological shift is the first requirement of greatness: to see your inheritance not as a gift, but as unfinished work, to stare into your lineage and see where they fell short, and then to crush those patterns underfoot. If your ancestors were poor, your wealth must be merciless. If they were weak, your strength must be feared. If they died unknown, your name must echo. You must commit acts they could never imagine, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. Because your bloodline is not sacred, it is flawed, and it is your duty to make it divine. This duty demands war, not with others, but with your own comfort, with the soft voice that says, they did their best. That is not enough. You must do better. You must do what they could not do, what they dared not think, because until one man rises and says, it ends with me, the cycle continues. The same mediocrity passed from father to son, from generation to generation, sealed in blood and silence. This is not personal. This is mathematical. If 10 generations failed to reach greatness, and the elephant man repeats their errors, then the pattern is proven. But if that man awakens, if he transforms violently, deliberately, then the pattern is broken. Then a new law is written, a new myth forged, and everything changes. Understand this: the world does not care who your grandfather was. It does not reward tradition, it rewards outcome. You are either the continuation of a forgettable history, or you are the anomaly that redefines the bloodline. Not with words, not with dreams, but with results that erase the shame of the past. The king who understands does not seek to preserve legacy. He seeks to repay its debt. With fire, with discipline, and with undeniable achievement. No king is remembered for blending in. No empire was ever built on imitation. They simply withdraw. The road to greatness is littered with the bodies of those who tried to fit in, who repeated what worked before, who thought that being good enough would make them unforgettable. It does not. The world forgets the familiar. It remembers the anomaly. If you wish to become the greatest your bloodline has ever seen, you must become that anomaly. Not by accident, but by ruthless design. Most men inherit more than a name. They inherit mannerisms, traditions, beliefs, and fears. These are not heirlooms. They are shackles. They confine you to the dimensions of the men who came before you, who built small lives with smaller minds. If you do not deliberately break from their shadow, you will rot beneath it. To surpass them, you must become something they never dared to be. Unpredictable, unapologetic, and unnatural. True differentiation is not aesthetic. It is psychological. It is not about dressing differently or speaking with flair. It is about thinking at a level that disturbs, that threatens, that challenges the norms that built your lineage. If your ancestors lived by obedience, you must master dominance. If they bowed to systems, you must reshape systems. Your thoughts must rupture the status quo. Your behavior must confuse who expect the typical. This is not rebellion for its own sake. It is transformation through necessary disruption. Greatness, by its very nature, is alienating. The king does not walk among equals. He does not seek validation from the masses. He constructs his reality so deliberately, so coldly, that even his allies do not fully understand him. This is the price of rising above. You cannot be both admired by the crowd and remembered by history. You must choose, and if you choose to be remembered, you must be willing to be feared, to be envied, and at times to be alone. Most men cling to templates. They look to others for how to behave, how to think, how to win. But the greatest among them invent new templates. They define new standards. This requires not just courage, but calculation. The act of differentiation must be strategic. You do not oppose your tradition by accident. You study it, dissect it, and then burn it methodically. You understand exactly how your forefathers lived. And then you find the precise pressure points where they were weak. Then you do the opposite. With precision, with silence, with force. This is not about dishonoring the past. It is about owning it. Your ancestors built a foundation. It may be weak, it may be flawed, but it is there. To honor that foundation is not to preserve it. It is to build a castle on it so great, so immense, that no one ever remembers the cracks beneath. Your legacy will not be defined by what you inherited, but by what you changed. But the act of becoming different must be deeper than tactics. It must consume your identity. You must no longer think in terms of fitting into anything. You must become a category of one. Your presence must disrupt rooms. Your silence must carry more weight than others' speeches. Your standards must terrify those who live by comfort. If you adopt even a fraction of the mediocrity that shaped your lineage, it will poison you from within. You must extract it, replace, transcend it. To rise beyond your bloodline, you must stop asking, what did they do? And begin asking, what didn't they dare to do? Their limits are your starting point. Their regrets are your battle map. Their silence is your war cry. You must deliberately become what they were too weak, too moral, or too distracted to imagine. Your greatness will not look like theirs. It will offend their memory. It will fracture their image. And that is exactly why it will endure. A king's power does not lie in truth. It lies in what is believed about him. Reality, to the masses, is not objective. It is emotional. It is crafted. And the wise ruler understands this better than anyone. The throne is not built solely with action. It is upheld by illusion. If you want to become the greatest your bloodline has ever seen, you must not only dominate in private, you must appear destined in public, not admired, not liked, but fated. There must be a sense that your rise was inevitable, that even if the world had tried to stop you, it would have failed. This is not deception. It is orchestration, the manipulation of optics, the careful management of visibility and mystery. While the weak seek transparency to gain trust, the powerful cultivate ambiguity to demand reverence. A king is not defined by what he shows, but by what he withholds. And it is in the withholding that the myth is born. You must become an architect of your own legend. Everything you reveal must serve a function. A scar is not just a wound. It is a story, sculpted for the right audience. A silence is not emptiness. It is a calculation that others are forced to interpret. The greatest men do not operate in clarity, they operate in fog. They let others fill the gaps with fear, with admiration, with curiosity. And in those projections, their true influence is forged. The masses are not drawn to facts. They are drawn to symbols, to narratives, to the illusion of fate. You must present yourself not as a man who succeeded by effort, but as a figure marked by destiny. You must make the world feel as if your rise was scripted long before you arrived. And you do this not by explaining yourself, but by becoming larger than explanation. Remove the obvious, shroud your motives in layers, speak less, move slowly. Never let your hand be predictable. When people cannot place you, they elevate you. When they cannot understand you, they mythologize you. This is how kings are remembered. Not for what they did, but for what they seemed to be. The appearance of control is often more powerful than control itself. If you walk with intention, they will assume purpose. If you show restraint, they will assume depth. If you endure attack without response, they will assume strength beyond comprehension. And that assumption becomes armor. They simply withdraw. The perception of strength shields you more effectively than brute force ever could. You must also create your downfall as carefully as your rise. Even your moments of weakness must appear designed. A stumble must seem strategic. A loss must feel like part of a longer plan. Never allow yourself to be seen as a victim of chance. Everything must be framed as deliberate, even when it is not. If you bleed, do it in shadow. If you struggle, do it in silence. Let the world see only the aftermath. Controlled, polished, inevitable. This psychological control over perception is what separates the feared from the forgotten. Most men live in reaction. They try to fix how others see them. The king designs how he is seen before he is ever perceived. He enters the stage not to be understood, but to be interpreted. His aura is not natural. It is crafted, brick by brick, with discipline and mystery. The more they know, the less they fear. The more they assume, the deeper their loyalty. Fear, awe, envy, these are emotions born not from truth, but from carefully planted signals that trigger imagination. If you wish to lead, to shape history, to imprint your name across time, you must become a master of symbols, a sculptor of identity. Your legacy will not be built on what is real. It will be built on what they believe was real. And belief, once established, becomes stronger than any fact you could offer. A king is not measured by how many surround him, but by how few can reach him. The higher you ascend, the more your value depends not on your presence, but on your absence. Authority is not built by being everywhere. It is built by becoming inaccessible. Every time you make yourself too available, too visible, too eager, you chip away at the illusion of command. You do not rule by proximity. You rule by distance. The more they see you, the less they feel you. And to become the greatest your bloodline has ever seen, you must stop chasing connection and begin cultivating mystery. Most men are addicted to interaction. They fear being alone, the uninvited, forgotten. But a true ruler does not fear solitude. He uses it as a forge. While others gather for comfort, the king retreats into strategy. While others explain themselves to be understood, the king lets his silence speak. Your scarcity becomes your strength. The less they see of you, the more they imagine. The less you say, the more they wonder. And in their imagination, you grow into something far greater than a man. You become a presence. People instinctively assign more weight to what is rare. This is the law of perception. A coin that circulates in every hand is not treasured. It is spent and forgotten. But a coin locked behind glass, seen only by a few, becomes a relic. Your time, your mind, your emotions, they must become rare, carefully rationed. Not out of arrogance, but out of design. When you speak, it must interrupt silence like thunder. When you appear, it must feel like an event. The moment they become comfortable around you, they stop revering you. And reverence, not affection, is the currency of power. Isolation is not idleness. It is construction. It is in your distance that you build the invisible walls between yourself and the common. Those walls are not just physical. They are emotional, intellectual, psychological. You must be unreadable. They should not know what you think of them. They should not know what pleases you or wounds you. The king who is easy to understand is easy to manipulate. But the king who confuses even his allies is impossible to touch. To be untouchable, you must first be unknowable. You must learn the discipline of not responding, the strength of being unfazed, the elegance of appearing immune to flattery, provocation, or need. This confuses people. It destabilizes them. And from that instability, they begin to depend on your steadiness. They start to look to you not for attention, but for definition. They want to know what you think, where you stand, but they must earn it. You give only glimpses. You create desire through denial. They will follow you not because they understand you, but because they cannot replace you. Even in relationships, power decays with overexposure. A man who constantly explains himself becomes predictable. A ruler who tries to please loses his edge. Do not seek warmth from those who need your coldness to grow. Your authority does not flourish in friendship. It flourishes in the silence after you leave the room, in the tension of not knowing whether you approve or disapprove, in the hunger created by your absence. They will speak about you more when you are gone than when you are present. And that, not applause, is the measure of influence. You must also isolate yourself from their noise, their doubts, their emotions, their low expectations. If you surround yourself with the common, you will begin to mirror them. To remain above, you must filter what enters your mind. Your circle must shrink as your vision expands. Speak less, listen strategically, trust slowly. Let them approach you, but keep your inner citadel guarded. A king who cannot be reached cannot be overthrown, and a man who cannot be deciphered becomes impossible to disarm. The greatest enemy to any man is not his rival, not the crowd, not even the weight of history. It is the voice within, the soft, familiar whisper that urges retreat when action is needed, the craving for comfort that disguises itself as wisdom, the fragile ego that reacts to insult, the quiet envy that corrodes ambition, the shame inherited from weak ancestors who learned to endure but never to conquer. If you are to become the greatest your bloodline has ever seen, then your first conquest must be inward. You must dominate the part of yourself that is still loyal to weakness. The average man is ruled by his emotions. He justifies this with names like authenticity and vulnerability. But these are tools for the ruled, not the ruler. A king does not respond to every flicker of feeling. He does not act from the wounded child or the anxious youth within. He knows that while instincts have their place, unchecked they will devour discipline. You must become the master of your inner court. And the first to kneel must be your shadow. The shadow is the part of you that remembers failure and tries to avoid it at all costs. It recoils at the risk of embarrassment, avoids confrontation, prefers silence to assertion, comfort to growth. It is shaped by years of social training, punishment, and unspoken beliefs passed down like a curse. Most men spend their lives either denying this shadow or being controlled by it. Both roads lead to mediocrity, but the one who becomes king does something different. He brings the shadow into his throne room, dissects it, and bends it to his will. Control over the shadow does not mean denial. The king does not pretend he is without fear, anger, lust, or despair. He acknowledges them, but he commands them. He knows that emotion is energy, and energy must be directed, never wasted. He turns rage into clarity. He shapes fear into precision. He turns his hunger into discipline. He looks at the darkest parts of himself and says, "You work for me now." The man who cannot do this is a puppet pulled by invisible strings. The man who can becomes a force that cannot be read, broken, or steered by anyone outside him. The shadow will fight back. It always does. It will whisper that rest is deserved, that compromise is reasonable, that submission is safer. You must be ready to silence it, not with argument, but with dominance. You must create an internal order where your lower nature serves your higher purpose, where the part of you that wants to quit is chained to the part of you that refuses. This is not cruelty. This is necessity. The throne does not belong to the most emotional. It belongs to the most disciplined. This inner conquest will be harder than anything the external world throws at you, because the enemy outside must break through your defenses. But the enemy within already knows your passwords. It knows where your insecurities live, what memories still haunt you, what words can pierce your armor. This is why most men fall. They prepare for war against others, but leave the gates open for the traitor inside. A king does the opposite. He fortifies from within first, knowing that the man who controls himself can manipulate nations. This control must become habitual. You must make suffering your servant, not your master. Wake early when your body screams for sleep. Hold your tongue when your pride demands retaliation. Walk into discomfort when your instincts beg for safety. Every act of internal dominance becomes a message sent to the shadow. You do not command me. You exist to serve me. And with every repetition, the voice of weakness grows quieter until it is no longer a voice. It is a tool. Only then can your external empire be built without fear of collapse. Because the throne outside is only as strong as the throne inside. And if that throne is ruled by chaos, by softness, by undisciplined desire, then you will lose everything the moment pressure arrives. But if it is ruled by will, by strategy, by mastery over the shadow, then no pressure is enough to break you. You become the one anomaly in your bloodline who was not ruled by impulse, the one who did not negotiate with his darkness, but conquered it completely. You were not born merely to exist. You were born to become the exception in a bloodline of forgotten men. A dynasty has two directions. It either declines into comfort and cowardice, or it ascends through one man who decides that mediocrity is a curse worth breaking. That man is not chosen by destiny. He chooses himself. But choosing is not enough. You must build. Brick by brick, habit by habit, scar by scar. You must construct a mind capable of holding power without trembling, of walking alone without begging for comfort, of standing above without apologizing for the view. That construction begins not with books or rituals, but with a shift in identity. You are not a follower of tradition. You are its reckoning. To become the greatest your bloodline has ever seen, you must not ask what others will think. You must not wait for permission. You must not try to be loved. Your mission is not acceptance, it is ascension. You will be feared, misunderstood, hated even. That is the price, but that is also the proof. Because when a king rises, the world resists him. And when he endures, the world rewrites itself around him. This is not a fantasy. It is a call to become disciplined beyond recognition, strategic beyond suspicion, and sovereign over the only kingdom that truly matters, yourself. Now, the choice stands before you. Will you carry your bloodline's chains, or will you shatter them and forge your crown? Decide, and let your transformation begin.